What happens to animals during war? Not the ones we hear about, not the ones we rescue, the ones no one sees. Before the noise, there is balance. A fox moves carefully through dry ground, listening more than it looks. Birds feed in the open, pecking at seeds, lifting their heads only to check for danger. A tortoise continues its slow journey, following a path it has taken many times before. Everything here has a rhythm, a system built on routine, memory, and trust in the environment. Then it changes. A distant blast travels through the ground before it reaches the air. The birds react first. They rise all at once, leaving everything behind. The fox freezes. Its body lowers, ears forward, trying to understand something it has never learned to interpret. Another sound follows. This time, nothing returns to normal. The birds circle, but they don't land. The fox moves, but not with purpose, only distance. The tortoise stops completely. The environment is still there, but behavior has already changed. Time passes, but the disturbance doesn't stop. Each sound resets everything. Animals begin to move differently, not for food, not for territory, just to avoid what they cannot predict. The fox abandons its usual path. It moves faster now, less careful, less precise. Rodents appear, then disappear just as quickly. Bird calls become rare. Silence begins to replace communication. Even the smallest creatures hesitate longer before moving. Energy is no longer spent on survival as it once was. Now it is spent on fear. Some animals leave, not because they want to, but because staying becomes uncertain. The fox crosses into unfamiliar ground, stopping more often, unsure of what it might encounter. Birds attempt to return, but lift again at the slightest disturbance. Water sources change. Debris collects along the edges. The surface carries things that weren't there before. Animals approach, then hesitate. Some drink, some don't. There is no way for them to know the difference. The land itself begins to shift. Fine particles settle over leaves and soil. Insects become harder to find. The smallest layer of the ecosystem begins to thin out. And when that layer changes, everything above it follows. Birds search longer for food. The fox hunts but gives up more often. Prey moves unpredictably. Predators miss opportunities. The balance begins to loosen. Feeding becomes irregular. Movement becomes uncertain. Some animals begin to weaken, not suddenly, but gradually. Others leave entirely. The fox travels farther than before, crossing boundaries it once avoided. Birds relocate, leaving the sky quieter above this land. The tortoise continues moving, but now far from where it started. And in the spaces they leave behind, there is less movement, less sound, less life. Eventually, the noise fades, but the silence that follows is not the same as before. The land remains, the shapes of the environment are still here, but the system is no longer functioning the same way. What was once predictable is now uncertain, and recovery is not immediate. Because for these animals, there is no understanding of war, only disruption, only displacement, only survival in a world that no longer behaves the way it should. And most of it happens unseen. So when we ask, what happens to animals during war? The answer is not always visible, but it is always there. In the silence, in the absence, in the spaces where life used to move.